Good afternoon, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to the AFS Best Practices webinar. Our topic today is SOFR is heating up, get the latest update from AFS. This webinar will be approximately an hour long, and our first speaker today is Dean Snyder, Managing Director, AFS Vision. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We do encourage questions. You can use the Q&A feature to ask your questions. Or if you would like to ask your question live, please use the raise the hand feature and we will unmute your line as soon as possible. We are recording today's session, and tomorrow you will receive an email with a link to listen or download the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Dean?
Thanks, Renee. Welcome, everybody. We've got a big crowd here on today's call. I guess as we approach we get closer to the date of LIBOR cessation. And for today's agenda, we'll talk a little bit about our progress at AFS and the ARRC committee. Charles will talk specifically in some of the latest ARRC updates. And then we have a survey results, and we appreciate everyone who responded to our survey. And Joe Orbono is going to take us through the results of the survey, which I think will give us an idea of where the banks are in the LIBOR transition. And we'll review again AFS's plans for delivery of code updates for the compounding in arrears. And then I think we have a few additional topics or comments that have been submitted in advance, and we'll try to cover as many of those as we can today. So again, thanks everybody for joining. Let's go ahead, Renee, the next slide. So, SOFR is not so far away. It's a shame you're all on mute because then I can't hear everybody laughing about that. But it's hard to believe that we started this journey in December of 2018. And I remember we were so excited in January, the next January, where the banks were going to get together with the Fed and the other regulators up in New York for the ARRC committee working group and really sit down and work out all the details, thinking, you know, we'd have a couple of meetings in a couple months, we'd have everything worked out and be ready to start developing and transitioning. Of course, the journey has not quite gone that way. It's been a much longer journey. A lot of back and forth, a lot of meetings with the ARRC working group, and we've conducted, I didn't even count, but maybe 8 or 9 webinars at least here at AFS for our clients. So it has been a journey, and as I said, we are, I think, approaching a significant goal towards the end of that. You know that AFS is continuing to work very hard on this, and we are continuing to stay on target for deliveries of the code required for compounding and arrears. And in fact, we have already delivered code to several of our level 3 clients, and there are more in the pipeline. So things are rolling along. Hats off to everybody, certainly at AFS, for staying focused, enduring the COVID-19 lockdown, but continuing to be productive at work. And it sounds like talking to our banks that you are in the same situation. Everybody's been working hard, learning how to use Zoom or WebEx or whatever, but we are moving forward. So let's go ahead, Renee. I'm going to turn this over to Charles Wambua. You know, Charles has been our lead liaison between AFS and the ARRC committee. And Charles is going to take us through some of the latest updates and announcements. Okay, Charles?
Thank you, Dean, and good afternoon, everyone. At this point, we're coming to the end. We're approaching the end of the SOFR conventions with the ARRC. And I believe in today's meeting this afternoon, right after this one, we'll be going through all the updated conventions so that we make sure everybody's at par and we should be able and ready for delivery. From a vendor perspective, we all have the goal of September 30th. But in general, let me give the updates, most recent updates from the ARRC. With the last time we spoke about the fallback language, I did point out that at that time, the step 2 was SOFR compounded in arrears plus a spread adjustment. But there was a recommendation from the industry to actually flip that to compound simple SOFR plus spread adjustment. As of last week, it was confirmed that yes, the ARRC has agreed, and the second step will be a simple SOFR. But if you choose to go with compounded in arrears or compounded in advance, you can still do so. But the main recommendation is simple SOFR. So I wanted to make sure I highlight that. The next thing is the early opt-in concept. This has been debated as a recent concept, and this has been debated quite a while because of the spread adjustment concept, whereby as of now, the spread adjustment is indicative. When we finally come to the end of December 2021 and LIBOR ceases, then it's going to be fixed. But with the early opt-in concept, the agent and the borrower can decide to switch to SOFR before LIBOR ceases. So what will happen with the spread adjustment? Because it's still indicative at that point. What has now been agreed will be that if I flip today, for example, I will use the spread adjustment that is published for today. And remember, we still have that concept of 5-day look back, but I will use a spread adjustment and it will remain static for just that one cycle of interest rollover, right? So if I'm going from today until next month, I'll use one spread adjustment. When next month comes and I'm repricing my loan, I will look for a new spread adjustment at that time. Even though each and every day of this whole month, spread adjustments have been published, I will not use them. I'll just remain static and use a new one the next time. Also, what will be the trigger for early opt-in? So previously, the conversations were focused on only new or amended loans. But with more market interest and people just being uncertain, that recommendation for early opt-in has also been pushed to your regular existing LIBOR loans, right? So they don't need an amendment. But if, let's say you have a credit with 5 facilities that are denominated in US dollar, so it has to be 5 or more, and you decide you want to take the early opt-in concept, you can do so now. You don't need an amendment or to have a new credit. So that is another concept of the early opt-in conversation that has been pushed in. Okay. There has also been conversation a lot about breakage, and with these SOFR rates being published daily, especially when we are talking about the daily simple SOFR or compounded in arrears, these are daily rates. So the concept of breakage will no longer exist. But the market has pushed for at least some language to be added in the new concept credit agreement to address compensation of loss. So it's not going to be very precise. It's going to be very high level, but we will leave it to the agents and the borrowers to determine, and their lenders to determine how that language will be in the credit agreement to address loss. Okay. Simple SOFR rollout. There was a question that came up about simple SOFR, because when we look at the fallback language that has been recommended, the very first step is the term SOFR. We know that does not exist today. It might not exist in the near future. So simple SOFR truly will be your first rollout when you switch to from LIBOR to SOFR. First of all, it's easy to implement, right? It exists today. It works just like your LIBOR loans work today. So to address that question of which will be the first rollout, it's going to be the simple daily SOFR. With the spread adjustment, one thing that came out in the last few weeks, I think maybe it was early last week, if the CA decides to announce publicly or in any written communication, if they decide to, let's say today, if they decide to say that LIBOR will definitely end December 2021, but they make that announcement today, your spread adjustments that so far have been, your spread adjustments that so far have just been indicative will actually be fixed and become official. I think a lot of people have been thinking that we're going to wait up until December 31st, 2021 to get our fixed spread adjustment rates. That's truly not the case. It could be, but it's truly not the case. It's dependent on when the FCA announces officially that LIBOR will cease at the end of next year. On the day that they announce, we'll have fixed spread adjustments. The other concept is floors. This has been lagging behind in the conversations with the ARRC, but now we have definitive answers. So to make it simple, when you have a legacy LIBOR loan, and let's say it has a floor of 1%, and you are flipping your loans from LIBOR to SOFR on simple daily SOFR rate, then that concept will be you take your SOFR rate plus your spread adjustment and you floor that. That's what you floor. But when it comes to the compounded in arrears variant of SOFR, what you will do with that spread adjustment is, because that spread adjustment is already coming as a compounded rate. So what you will do is you will subtract that from your SOFR rate, and then you'll get a new floor, and then that's what you're going to floor your SOFR, and then you can take it through the steps of effective rate, cumulative rate, non-cumulative rate, and then when you get to the final rate, then you can add back that spread adjustment that you subtracted in the beginning. So that's the difference between the simple SOFR and the compounded in arrears SOFR.
Charles, to confirm that the system's going to do that for you when you enter in what the floor should be, the system will know to take that into account.
That's correct. That will be automatically done for you. Okay, thank you, Dean. Next point is about observation shift and the lag. Now, this whole lag concept is mostly with the European side, the Starling group, but we're going to adapt it in this way. We now no longer will be using observation shift when it comes to SOFR. It's no longer recommended by the ARRC to use the observation shift, just because of the complexity of if there's an early prepayment or complexities with trading. You know, some people can benefit more than another, or some they can be taken advantage of, right? Depending on when they're trading or when a payment happens, a prepayment happens. So what SOFR will focus on now will be this lag concept, which is basically, it's very easy. If I'm doing a 5-day look back and I'm looking at last week, let's say Friday's rate, I'll forget about the 5. Let's say I'm just looking at the rate that was used Friday. That rate would have had a weight of 3, even though I'm using it today, and today is Wednesday. With this lag concept is I will still take that weight from Friday, but today's weight or number of accrual days for today's interest is just 1. So with the log concept, I'll just be using that rate for Friday, but not use a weight of 3, but rather calculate it with a weight of 1. So that's the difference, that's the new recommendation, and that's very easy to operationalize and very easy to explain to your borrowers and lenders. Any questions?
I would just add, Charles, that with all this, the ARRC committee working group has been publishing spreadsheets to show these various scenarios, and those are the same spreadsheets that we have followed and built our test cases around. So as that official documentation is provided from the ARRC, they can rest assured that AFS is following those examples.
That's correct. And I believe they shared other spreadsheets earlier this week geared to this afternoon's meeting at 2 o'clock.
Right, and if you're not on the distribution, there was an email sent out from the ARRC committee. I believe it came out this morning, Charles, and it included links to a new user guide, and I think it's, I looked at it, it's about 56 pages, so I didn't get to read all of it this morning. But there's a user guide and several other documents, again, that will help all of the bankers in following the final recommendations, right?
That's correct.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Charles. And again, we'll be joining the call at 2 o'clock, as I'm sure many of you will be as well, to hear some of the final recommendations as the working group kind of winds down from this stage and moves on to the actual, I'd say, implementation stage. So we want to go ahead to the next slide, and I'm going to introduce Joe Orbono from AFS. And Joe has been instrumental in all of our communications around our SOFR efforts and putting together the various surveys that we've done. So Joe's going to take us through the results of our most recent survey. Okay, Joe?
Thanks, Dean. Thank you, Charles. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Orbono. As Dean mentioned, over the next few minutes, I'll be sharing the latest SOFR survey results with you. Approximately a month ago, AFS sent a survey to the user community in order to better understand your SOFR readiness and plans. The information that you provided is a very, very big help to AFS. This data collected really helps us with our development decisions and ensures that we deliver the best possible solutions. Before we dive into the details, though, I and everyone at AFS would really like to say thank you very, very much for taking the time to complete the survey. We know your time these days is even tighter, so even more, we greatly appreciate your feedback. Thanks again. Okay, let's start with this question number 1, based off a volume of loans requiring a transition. The reply back is reasonably significant, as we're seeing that more than 50% responded with 10,000 or more loans to be converted. Not much of a surprise, as we already know that AFS systems are used to process large loan portfolios. So yes, this is the volumes are significant. So to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a double question here. For question 2, we ask if different interest rates other than SOFR would be considered. Over 70% replied no. So SOFR is definitely in the game and staying in the game. This, we believe, indicates a higher adaptation for SOFR than we previously recorded. We did have a survey back in February. I'm not sure if you remember, and the numbers were a little less, but now SOFR is definitely being adopted at a higher rate. 27% did indicate that they will replace LIBOR with a different interest rate. And then when we ask over on the next slide, the next graph, it shows that the organizations considering offering a different rate than SOFR, the prime rate is a leading choice. Fed funds and Ameribor are also significant considerations. With respect to the other option, the write-ins, a few write-ins we noticed Treasury constant maturity rate was mentioned a couple times. So if that'll help give us an understanding of possible other rates. Next slide, please. Okay, question number 4. This question is asking the time frame of your upcoming transition. The responses received here were very close, so we don't see one specific desired time frame. Those selecting other did tally up though to 30%. And the most common write-in that we noticed was that it was indicated that organizations required more time and further ARRC guidelines to make a final decision. Okay, number 5, please. So question 5, with respect to which fallback language approach will be applied. Both the hardwired approach and the internal amendment approach received 60%, with 35% going to undecided. So what we did here was when we went back and we compared the response here to the responses on question 4, and that was the timing response. You know, what quarter in the future would you transition? What we noticed was that 85% of the undecided organizations are actually they decided and selected that they will be transitioning in Q1 or Q2 of 2021. So it's probably safe to conclude that once again, more time is being planned to make these decisions. Okay, number 6. On question 6 concerning which SOFR rate method will be initially offered, this was also a question back in February, and compounding in arrears received about 90% back in February. Now, not surprising, based off of Charles's previous slides and the ARRC's progress, we are now seeing that daily simple SOFR is by far the preferred choice. This is then followed by SOFR average in advance. And then coming up very close is both forward term and compounding in arrears, which did receive over 50%. There was a very small percentage that informed us that they are not offering SOFR at all. So this slide definitely showed us a change in sentiment towards what specific rate would be offered in the future. Number 7, please. With respect to the future usage of compounding in arrears, okay, we see that 60% will be originating loans with compounding in arrears and 38% indicating no. For the organizations originating with compounding, we were asking what method will you apply? Interestingly, we noticed a significant undecided response, with a quarter of all responses for both the rate and the balance method together. Again, this overall response leads us to conclude that more understanding and time is required to make these decisions.
Hey, Joe, I just wanted to add on question 7. So one of what we were trying to get to partially here is you originating like bilateral loans versus you're participating or buying into other deals, right? Because the feeling was maybe most of the compounding in arrears would be just with the large syndication deals of which you're buying into. But this response on number 7 is indicating that banks are planning to offer the compounding arrears even in a lot of the deals that they originate.
Correct. Number 9, please. Thank you, Dean. For 9, this goes into what Dean was just mentioning. We did ask the question of compounding in arrears will be offered for both bilateral and syndicated loans. The majority said both. Almost 50% said both, and then we had a undecided response of about 45%. So it looks like we're still not 100%. The market's not 100% clear on how this will work out and what approach they'll take. Number 10, please. So the question 10, we were asking the business factors that would guide the offering of the compounding in arrears. The line of business is by far the leader, with 75% of the responses saying the line of business would be a contributing factor, and then followed by the loan type and the loan size as a factor. The other factors were also, there was many comments based off of not sure yet, need more time and so forth to make that decision. So it's still under consideration with quite a few organizations. Number 11, please. And this also is asking, do you expect to originate syndicated loans, participate in syndicated loans, or both with respect to compounding and arrears? And the both received almost 40%, but then again, approximately 45% are undecided at this point in time with their syndication approach. So it looks like more work and more time is needed to make these final decisions as well. Number 12. This was a very simple yes or no question on adding staff to support compounding and arrears. This final graph shows a very, very clear majority, almost unanimous, telling us that there's no anticipated need for extra staff, which I would say we were a little bit surprised with this, such a large response, but it's, yeah, it seems like most organizations have no problem handling this new complexity.
Well, again, I would add, Joe, to that, as you can tell with some of our questions, we're trying to kind of zero in on the complexities or the operational issues of doing SOFR, especially the compound and arrears, versus the business drivers, right? We understand from the beginning the business drivers with the derivatives market wanting to go with a compounded and arrears rate structure for those advantages, but a lot of operational challenges as we've been working through. So one might have assumed that with the operational challenges, it might take more people to support compounded and arrears. However, we've also thought with this response, 95% saying no, they won't have additional support staff, could also be factored by the COVID-19 situation and banks looking to cut the costs and a continued focus on efficiency and so forth. So that could be working against us as well, that nobody's looking to try to add staff for anything these days in this environment. So trying to understand how much of this answer was influenced by that factor versus truly the operational complexities of compounding.
Yes, a very valid points there. Thanks, Dean. Okay, so then the final question that we have on the next slide, we were basically, this is an open-ended question. We were just asking for topics, feedback, or challenges that organizations might want to share with us. So we collected a few comments and questions. The first one, the uncertainty as to whether LIBOR will really end and the lack of consensus of SOFR in the lending markets. Looking at the data that was just presented and observing the market sentiment, we believe SOFR is being adopted. We do realize, though, that there's been some confusion and hesitation on SOFR. AFS has been a participant of the ARRC operational working group from the start, and so this has really offered us some insight into the situation. We host these webinars like today, and we've been collecting this data and this information to help us better understand the transition to the alternative rates. So from the AFS point of view, this project really has been a steep learning curve, and we believe that the data that we're presenting to you is hopefully keeping you up to date on your progress and on your project. So yes, SOFR is in play. At what point can we understand the details behind the implementation of SOFR at an account level? Is there any special implementation considerations, data conversion, running statements, and so forth? Well, the testing of the published rates right now, that can be done, and checking the accounts, that's all possible right now in the systems. We had sent out a user guide quite a few months ago. As far as compounding in arrears, we fully understand the urgency. The rate method is ready for level 3. Vision is close. AFS Vision code is very close. This will all be accomplished after July 31st. And we anticipate that loans that will be transitioning at the end of the pricing period, so as they transition, there will be no data conversions really required for this. The next one, swaptions, looking at SOFR compounding in arrears. Yes, this came up. The swaptions has become a topic in the last couple months, and it looks like, yes, Q4 of 2020, and is AFS looking to speed up delivery of the compounding in arrears to accommodate swapped loans, and also will AFS offer a rate calculator workaround to accommodate? Well, this is similar to the previous question. Our timing is like, once again, level 3 is ready. Vision and both for the rate and the balance method, this will all be available way before the fourth quarter 2020. With respect to the rate calculator and workaround, AFS is not planning to develop a calculator at this point in time. There's already several calculators on the web that we think are sufficient. So that's, yeah, sorry to disappoint, but yeah, if it's really needed, I guess we can have a discussion with our clients on that.
So Joe, just let me add about the speeding up delivery. I think we've constantly looked to see how quickly we can move forward with this, and we've been trying to accelerate as much as possible. Unfortunately, that's been offset by the lack of final recommendations from the ARRC committee. You know, we feel good that we've been able to keep with our original projected dates, given that some things were still just being finalized literally this week. So that has certainly been a challenge for us in trying to meet timeframes. But again, also the survey indicates that most of the banks are not looking to start doing the SOFR, at least the compounded, until next year, first or second quarter. So I think that should work fairly well. Again, we've started delivering the compounded arrears by rate method already to level 3 clients, and the balance method will be coming up shortly. And then again, for Vision, we'll be delivering the rate and the balance methods over the next couple of months. All right, Joe, back to you.
Okay, so integrated testing strategies and complexities with multiple SOFR conventions, methodologies, products, and systems. Level 3, again, code changes are now available for compounding the rate development. The code can be requested via a CCR. Delivery packages will include the code changes, user documentation, installation instructions, and test cases. So hopefully that answers that concern. We would like to get more information regarding the complexities associated with invoicing customers who have facilities with compounding and arrears. Yes, this has been an urgent issue that we are addressing. It's been sent to our invoicing experts and is now being addressed. Thank you.
Well, one thing we did there, Joe, is early on in the process last year, actually AFS got together with the other major vendors, and collectively we agreed on what invoices and syndication notices should look like, what data should be on them. So we have been following that collective recommendation that the vendors put together.
One area of interest is floors on LIBOR loans as they fall to SOFR. Yes, the floors, yes, we coded this system. I think this was brought up earlier by Charles. We've coded the system to follow the ARRC recommended interest rate floor logic. So this should be delivered very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that.
That concludes the survey.
we're going to move over and have Rich Coogan, I think, from our level 3 group, just review again dates and some other questions that we've received from our client community. Rich?
Thanks, Dean. Good afternoon, everybody. As Joe had mentioned earlier, and Dean has mentioned a couple times, we have made available the code for compounding the rate in level 3. We've delivered to 7 banks so far who have completed the CCR process. So if you, hopefully you're in the midst of that process with your relationship manager to get the CCR submitted, and then we can send you the code. Joe reviewed with you what's included in the package that gets delivered. Vision is, of course, on course for their July 31st delivery or completion of that code. And then we are in level 3 on course for the August 31st delivery of compounding the balance. So we're still working through that. But, you know, we've met our dates that we established a while ago, and we will continue to meet these dates through the end of the project.
And
Okay.
Rich, can I add just one more comment there? As far as the delivery of the code, again, there are a couple of options there that that banks have elected to do. Whether you want to take the compounding the rate code now and then follow that with another delivery for compounding the balance, you know, sometime in September timeframe, versus just taking one delivery at after the September timeframe. That's up to you and how you want to receive, install, test, etc. the code. So we've had banks elect to do each of those methods. So Rich mentioned the 7 banks that already that have taken the or are in the process of getting the rate code. Obviously, they're looking to take 2 deliveries, but we do have some that will elect to take 1.
And one other thing I'd like to mention, when you do get the delivery, if you have questions or problems that arise, we'd appreciate if you could submit those questions or problems, issues through the SOFR process. That way we can keep track of the items that come in, and if, you know, similar banks are having similar problems, we can, you know, once we get it from one, we can go through and see if we need to send it to everybody. So we really appreciate it if you could submit those through the SOFR process. Okay, next slide. So these are just some questions that have come in that we thought we'd answer. So does AFS plan to release the developments, the process SOFR conventions recommended by ARRC, including numerical test cases? And the next one we'll use to provide information on new LIBOR updates. So this is pretty much the same thing. As Joe mentioned, in the delivery that we have available is the code. There's 2 UPRs. So there's code for that, the 700 reports, which is a little more information about the code, test scripts, a new features document that like a user guide, and then some delivery information, installation information is also included. So all that's out there, ready to ship as soon as you would like to receive it. So we're good there. Question about release notes. We did send release notes to a couple banks who requested them, not before the code was ready, maybe a couple weeks before. We can try to do that. So now everything is ready. So we're good there for compounding the rate. But if you would like them for compounding the balance, we're nowhere near having them ready to send to anybody yet. But once we get further along the process, if you would like to see some early release notes, just go through your relationship manager and we'll see what we can do. Can't promise anything, you know, with some of the changes still going on, but we'll try to get them out a little bit before the end of August if that's possible. Statement change for SOFR billing. So we have added, I think Dean mentioned, you know, the ARRC had met about billing and syndication notices and things. So different items have been added to the billing file from level 3 and to the XML for Vision. So those extra items are out there and will be on the files that you receive to get your bills together. The next question is about indexes and how many should be.
Rich, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify something there, that those statement changes are for the compounding conventions.
Right, only. The others, there's really no changes for the first three conventions that are out there. It's just for the compounding conventions. How many indexes should be established? Again, that's up to you and how you intend to use the SOFR rates. You can, build as many as you want, like with LIBOR, you build in look back days and things like that into the rates themselves with effective dates. You can do it that way. We also have some new look back capabilities with the compounding the rate feature. If you're using a daily rate, you can use that new look back feature by entering the number of look back days in the number of months field. So that will be available. So it all depends how you want to go about it at your bank. I would think you'd want to try to set up fewer indexes with LIBOR. Some banks, had multiple 30s, multiple 90s, and so forth. So it's kind of up to you how you want it. You can continue to do it that way if you like, or you can use some of the look back features available with the compounded rate. And recommends for automating the transition. So that really needs to be addressed on a bank by bank basis. We haven't really been involved in any consulting with any banks of how they're actually going to do that. And if you'd like us to help, that would be a separate effort that you'd have to talk to your relationship manager about. But banks are trying to figure this out and how they want to do this transition. For the loans that are going to be coming up before the end of LIBOR goes LIBOR censation. So that was it, Dean. So back to you.
Thank you, Rich. We appreciate it, Renee. You can go to our last slide, I think. So let me mention, as far as this webinar series goes, we will continue. As I said, we're moving into a new phase. I think past the design and how is this going to work. And we're going to be in the phase of you're getting the coding changes for the compounding and arrears, and you're going to go through testing and implementing of these changes. So I think we would continue these webinars based on new topics. So we would encourage you to let us know as you start working with the code and start going through testing and implementation scenarios. If you would submit questions or topics to us that would be beneficial to share with everybody, we would certainly continue more webinars and cover those topics as appropriate. So as always, we look for feedback and we'll respond accordingly, and we'll look to see if when appropriate, maybe the next survey would be beneficial, and we could put something like that together to find out how everybody's actually doing. So beyond SOFR, just a reminder that our business intelligence group is going to have an update on commercial lending trends the end of July, and also our CCAR benchmarking workshop is coming up in September. So again, more events coming your way. As you can see, always refer to the AFS Vision website for all the latest updates, and certainly reach out to us or your RM if you have any other questions or anything we can do for you. So as we've continued to say, we hope that everyone stays safe and well through the COVID-19 crisis. I hope we can move forward out of this and back to some form of new normalcy. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you being here today, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Renee. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dean. Have a good day, everybody.